After my wife cheated on me, we ended up getting revenge on our lover together. Real original, right? Let M married to Jessica, who's 32, for 8 years. Our relationship has had its ups and downs like any marriage, but over together in a cozy suburban home with our golden retriever, Max. I work in construction, specifically in demolition, a bin-off. Jessica has been acting strangely for the past couple of months. At first, I chalked it up to stress from her Joe ushing herself to be the best. But there were other signs that I couldn't ignore. She'd spend a lot of time texting and smiling at her phone, but we haven't been as intimate as we used to be either. Jessica always had a high sex drive, which was one of the thin excuses, like she's tired or not feeling well. I tried to be understanding, but the more it happened, the more suspicious I feel. We decided to hire a professional dog trainer, someone who could help us manage his energy. Enter Dylan, THD-looking guy. At first, I didn't think much of it. He was just there to train Max, but Jessica seemed to take a special interest in him. The training sessions, and even text him outside of work hours. It all started to add up, and my gut was telling me so, a nagging feeling that wouldn't go away. I wanted to trust Jessica. I really did. But as the days went by, the doubt I feel like I need to know the truth, no matter how much it might hurt. I just need to know if I'm being paranoid, or if it's been a roller coaster of emotions these past few days, and I've got quite a story to tell. So here's what happened. Usual. Jessica didn't know I was coming home early because I wanted to surprise her with dinner. I thought maybe be growing between us, but as soon as I walked into the house, something felt off. Max didn't come running to greet home. I found Max in his crate, looking a bit forlorn, which was unusual since he usually roamed freely when as I approached our bedroom, I heard muffled voices. My heart started pounding and I felt a lump in my throat. I sitting on the bed, way too close for comfort, and whispering to each other. My heart sank. I couldn't hear exactly. She had her hand on his leg, and they were looking at each other in a way that wasn't just friendly. I quietly backed illusions, but it wasn't looking good. I needed proof, something undeniable. So I decided to wait it out. I went back to anything when Jessica eventually came out, looking a bit flustered. Later that night, after Dylan had left, I noticed Jessica's phone on the kitchen counter. She was in the shower, and I picked it up. I felt like a total creep, but I had to know. Sure enough, there were messages from Dylan. Flirty, succumbing. My heart shattered as I scrolled through them. They had been seeing each other behind my back for weeks. when I was out of town for work. The most recent message was from that morning, confirming their plans to meet. I put her phone back exactly where I found it and tried to act normal, but inside I was boiling with rage and hurt. I had to do next. I didn't sleep at all that night, replaying everything in my head. The next day, I decided to confront her full it would be, but I knew I had to stay calm and collected to get the truth out of her. This is the hardest thing I've around it. I'm back with an update. I finally confronted Jessica about what I discovered, and it was every bit as painful as I expected. Here's how it all went down. After finding those messages, I knew I could finished her coffee and was getting ready for her day. I sat her down at the kitchen table, trying to keep my my hands shaking, but I knew I had to do this. Jess, we need to talk, I started, trying to keep my voice steady. She asked, her voice sounding casual, almost too casual. I took a deep breath. I came home early yesterday and saw I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I checked your phone. Her eyes widened, and for a split second I saw a flash. She asked, her voice rising. Yeah, I did. And I saw the messages, Jessica. I saw everything. My voice broke a little. Buo played dumb at first, saying, "What messages? Dylan and I are just friends. He's helping with Max." I I couldn't believe now you've been meeting up with him behind my back. Just tell me the truth. Her shoulders slumped and she looked. There was a long silence before she finally spoke. Okay, fine. It's been going on for a few months, but it's not what that hit me like a ton of bricks. How could you do this to us? To me, I asked, my voice trembling with anger and hurt. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. I was feeling lonely and Dylan was there, and one thing led to supposed to be a team. If you were feeling lonely, why didn't you talk to me? I was on the verge of shouting, but I tried. I don't know, Mike. I'm sorry. I know I messed up. I never wanted to hurt you, she said, her tears flowing freely now. BD ain't just mess up, Jessica. You betrayed me. You broke our marriage vows. How am I supposed to trust you after this, while I tried to process everything? Part of me wanted to forgive her, to try and work things out, but another part of MD some time to think, I finally said, standing up. I can't look at you right now. I need to get out of here. She reached out, trying to grab my hand, but I pulled away. Mike, please, we can work through this. I love you. I shoo space. I grabbed my keys and walked out the door, leaving her there crying. I didn't know where I was going, but I reminded me of our life together. I ended up at a park, sitting on a bench and staring into space, trying to make sense I could ever forgive her. I felt like my whole world had crumbled in an instant. It's been a rough few days, and I've been going through a whirlwind of emotions. Here's what's been happening since I walked out on Jessica aft, driving around aimlessly. My mind was racing with thoughts of betrayal, anger, and sadness. I ended up at my dad's there, and I needed the solitude to sort through my feelings. Sitting on the porch staring out at the lake, I felt utterly Jessica's betrayal cut deep, and the fact that she tried to downplay it as just sex made it even worse. How could she? I thought we had a solid marriage. Sure, we had our issues, but I never imagined she would cheat. The first night at TYI's, I saw her and Dylan together. The images haunted me, and I felt an overwhelming sense of anger and despair at all. At one point, I even considered drinking myself into oblivion, but I knew that wouldn't solve anything. The next scene, my rock through thick and thin, and I knew I needed someone to talk to. When I called him and told him everything, he offered to come to the cabin and keep me company, but I told him I needed some time alone to process things. BD that I could get through this. He also suggested I see a therapist to help deal with the emotional fallout. It was good. Next few days, I went through a roller coaster of emotions. One moment, I was filled with rage and wanting to confront. The next moment, I was overwhelmed with sadness, mourning the loss of the life I thought we had. I cried more than part. I started questioning everything about our relationship. Had there been other signs I missed? Was this the only time like I'd been living a lie, and it made me sick to my stomach? At one point, I even considered going back to the Who was any way to salvage our marriage. But every time I thought about her with Dylan, the anger flared up again, and I sat down and wrote a letter to Jessica. I poured out all my feelings, the hurt, the anger, the betrayal. I told her how could ever forgive her. Writing it all down helped me process some of the pain, but I didn't send the letter. I wasn't ready to communicate into therapists. I knew I needed professional help to navigate through this mess. The betrayal had shaken me to my thinking about the practical side of things. If we were going to separate, there were a lot of things to consider. Split of course, dealing with Max. The thought of losing my home and the life I'd built with Jessica was daunting, but I as much as I wanted to avoid it. I knew I'd eventually have to face Jessica again. We needed to have a serious converse at a time, trying to heal and figure out what I wanted for my future. After a lot of soul searching and some very diffy forward, here's what's been happening. And there she was, sitting at the kitchen table with Max by her side. She looked up and I could see she'd been crying repeat much either. "Mike," she said softly, standing up as I walked in. I held up a hand to stop her. "Jessica, we need to tell Sint listen, okay?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She nodded and sat back down, looking at me with a mixture of thinking. "And this whole situation has completely shattered my trust in you. You didn't just cheat on me. You lied to me repeatedly, and you made me question everything about our marriage. I don't know if I can ever get peace." She stayed quiet. "I don't think we can work through this," I continued. "I've talked to a lawyer, and I want a divorce. We to do with the house and Max." At that she sat up straighter, her face hardening. "Max is staying with me," she said, firm she means to me. She crossed her arms, a bitter smile on her lips. "Oh, so now you care about Max. You're the one, I'm the one who's been taking care of him." "Jessica, that's not fair. I love Max and you know it." "Well, life's not fair, is it? Fight me for him." I couldn't believe she was being so petty. "Fine. We'll let the lawyers handle it," I said, my anger rising eyes. "Or we could handle this ourselves. You don't have to leave, Mike. We can work this out. You know, stay together, Jessica. I can't trust you anymore. Every time I look at you, I see you with him. I don't want to live like that." Her demeanor shifted suddenly, from defiant to seductive. She stood up and walked over to me, placing her hand on "Can go to counseling. Start over. I miss you. I need you." I stepped back, disgusted by her manipulation. "Jessica, stop. Expect everything to be okay," she pouted, trying to look innocent. "But Mike, I still love you. We can fix this. Just give trust you anymore. I need to move on, and so do you." Her face twisted with anger. "Fine. Go then. But don't think you over the next few weeks, things got even uglier." Jessica refused to let me take Max, and she made every conversatio rip me, manipulate me, and even seduce me into staying. But I held my ground. I moved out and found a small apart D in the house, and we started the divorce proceedings. It was a bitter process, filled with arguments and accusation. Challenge has been the fight over Max. Once we agreed to proceed with the divorce, things got really messy. Jessica D, she argued that she had been the primary caregiver while I was away at work, and that Max was more attached to he Ying, and it made me angrier than ever. I got my lawyer involved right away. He was amazing and reassured me that originally, how I had taken care of him, and even how Jessica was trying to use him to keep me tied to her. It was a bit. We continued the legal battle over Max, and it was exhausting. My lawyer advised me to document everything, and we filed for shared custody, and I made sure to show the court how much Max meant to me and how I was fully a picture of me being too busy with work to be a good dog owner. She even went as far as accusing me of neglecting Eeply, but I stayed focused and determined to fight for Max. The court hearings were grueling. We both had to pre-dissected in front of strangers. Jessica put on a show, playing the victim and trying to make me look like the bad guy. But my lawyer was prepared, and we had plenty of evidence to counter her claims. Finally, after what felt like an eater of Max with specific arrangements for visitation and care. It wasn't exactly what I wanted, but it was a victory. I could rely. Even after the court's decision, Jessica continued to make things difficult. She would try to change the visitation changes and generally make the process as painful as possible, but I stayed strong knowing that I was doing the right thing on my friends and family. They were my support system, and I couldn't have made it through without them. Spending quality time with Max whenever I could. One day, a few weeks into our shared custody arrangement, Jessica asked to meet up. She said she had something she needed, looked nervous, like she had something heavy on her mind. "Mike, I've been doing a lot of thinking and talking to my expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know that I'm truly sorry for everything. I never meant to hurt you, and I read take me off guard. I could see the sincerity in her eyes, and for the first time I felt a tiny bit of the anger lift. I appreciate that, Jess. I really do, I said quietly. I'm still hurt, and I don't know if I'll ever fully get over it, but I'm trying a bit more, and for the first time since the whole mess began. It felt like we were both on the path to healing. It didn't Litty and showed genuine remorse. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more complicated, life threw me a curveb ed custody of Max. Things were supposed to get easier. I thought I was finally starting to see some light at the end of Jessica, and I were maintaining a fragile peace, and I was focused on rebuilding my life. Then one day, I got a call from M&S, but we hadn't spoken much since the whole mess started. Her voice was shaky, and she sounded anxious. Mike, oh you, she said, her words coming out in a rush. My heart sank. What is it, Sarah? Just tell me. She hesitated for a moment. Who the father is, whether it's you or Dylan. The world felt like it was spinning. What? Are you serious? Yes, Mike. I couldn't keep it a secret anymore. You deserve to know. I thanked Sarah and hung up, my mind reeling. Jessica Bano Sissit. I felt a mix of anger, confusion, and even a glimmer of hope. If the baby was mine, everything would change, and I got there. I confronted her. Jessica, why didn't you tell me you're pregnant? I demanded, barely keeping my voice true. She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. Yes, it's true. I found out a few weeks ago. I didn't know how to tell. Why do you know if it's mine or Dylan's? I asked, my heart pounding. I don't know, Mike. I'm so sorry. I was going to tell you sick. We need to find out, Jessica. This changes everything. We talked about getting a paternity test as soon as possible. My stomach, but if there was a chance it was mine, I needed to know. The next few weeks were a blur of anxiety, and Jessica tried to reach out to me more, apologizing and expressing her regret. She seemed genuinely scared, and the betrayal was still too fresh. Finally, the day of the paternity test came. We went to the clinic together. The tension eating was torture. I felt like my entire future was hanging in the balance. When the results came in, my heart was pooing me with tears in her eyes. The results confirmed that I was not the father. The baby was Dylan's. I felt a strange mica through a child, but heartbreak at what our relationship had become. Jessica broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. She had done. I'm sorry, Mike. I'm so sorry, she kept repeating through her tears. I stood there feeling numb. It's over, Jessica. Nicia's pregnancy complicated things even more, but I knew I needed to stay strong for my own sake. One day, while Dee away to be closer to her family and to have support during her pregnancy, it felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders, but I was also sad for Max, who had become attached to both of us. Mike, I want you to have Max, she said one day. I know how much he means to you, and with the baby coming, I won't be able to give him the attention he deserves. Mike, it's the least I can do after everything. I just want what's best for him. For the first time in months, I felt a genuine. With that, we made the necessary arrangements. And Max officially came to live with me full-time. It was a small hours healing. Just when I thought things were finally starting to settle down, another twist hit me out of nowhere. A while, I focused on work, therapy, and rebuilding my life with Max. It was a relief to have full custody of him, and he quickly just enjoying each other's company. It felt like I was finally finding some peace. Then one day I received an unexpected distress, a far cry from the confident dog trainer I once knew. Mike, we need to talk, he said, his voice strained. I will hear me out, he pleaded. It's about Jessica and the baby. Against my better judgment, I let him in. He looked around. I asked, trying to keep my cool. Jessica reached out to me, he began. She's been pressuring me to step up and take I didn't sign up for any of this. I felt a surge of anger. You think I signed up for any of this, Dylan? You wrecked my your responsibilities. He looked desperate. I know, and I'm sorry, but Jessica's threatening to go public, to tell my what to do. I was seething. You deserve every bit of this, Dylan. You brought it on yourself. What do you expect me to, please, Mike? I need your help. Maybe you can talk to Jessica, convince her to back off a bit. Just until I can figure thin why. Part of me wanted to kick him out and let him deal with the mess he created. But another part of me saw an oppo make sure he faced the consequences of his actions. I'll talk to Jessica, I said finally, but don't expect me to take your lie, appreciate it. After Dylan left, I felt a cold determination settle over me. I didn't owe him anything, but I could I called Jessica and set up a meeting for the next day. When we met at the cafe, Jessica looked exhausted, her the weight of the world on her shoulders. Jessica, what's your plan here? Going public with this is going to hurt a lot, he sighed. I don't know, Mike. I'm angry and scared. Dylan promised he'd be there for me, and now he's running hours simmering just below the surface. Jessica, I think you should go public. Dylan needs to face the consequences of her eyes widened in surprise. You think so? Yes. He wrecked my life and now he's trying to wreck yours. He doesn't kids know what kind of man he is. Let everyone know. She looked uncertain. But Mike, won't that just make things his way? He'll be held accountable. He needs to know he can't get away with this. Jessica nodded slowly, a look of day away with this. Over the next few days, Jessica started making her plans. She reached out to Dylan's wife, sharing that she also contacted his workplace, ensuring that his colleagues knew what kind of man they were working with. It was C. The fallout was immediate and intense. Dylan's wife was devastated and furious. She kicked him out of the house, riotous repercussions at work. His life was crumbling around him, and it was clear he was paying the price for his action, erased the pain of what had happened. But it felt like some semblance of justice was being served. Jessica, meanwhile, the consequences of their affair. One day, while I was at the park with Max, I got a call from Jessica. She sounded calm, almost relieved. Mike, but I appreciate you talking to me and helping me see reason. I'm going to focus on the baby and my family. I hope Jessica. I hope things get better for you, I replied. Hanging up, I felt a sense of closure. It wasn't the happy ending and a sense of hope for the future. It was time to move on and start fresh. Update. It's been a year since the last I wanted to share where I am now and how things have changed. Your support has been incredible throughout this positive news. After Jessica decided to go public with everything, the fallout was massive. Dylan's life imploded. His wife, he lost a lot of respect from his colleagues and friends. It was a harsh lesson for him, and while I don't take pleasure with it, Jessica moved in with her family to get the support she needed during her pregnancy. We kept our interactions. A couple months ago, she reached out to me, letting me know she had given birth to a healthy baby boy. She sounded me again for supporting her decision to go public and for being there, even when I had every right to walk away. Starting to stabilize. I've thrown myself into my work and my hobbies. I've been promoted at my job, which has been Ant companion, and we've grown even closer. He's been my rock through all of this, and having him by my side has I've also been seeing a therapist regularly, which has helped immensely. Talking through my feelings and working on of the anger and resentment, focusing instead on building a better future for myself. About 3 months ago, I had trip across the country. It was something I always wanted to do, but never had the chance. We visited National PA the way. It was exactly what I needed to clear my head and start healing. The trip gave me a new perspective, and I've also reconnected with old friends and made some new ones. I joined a local hiking group and started participating and surround myself with positive, like-minded people. I even started dating again. It's still new and I'm taking thank you of finding happiness again. One day, while I was hiking with Max, I ran into Sarah, Jessica's best friend. We hadn't asked Nellie happy to see me doing well, and we ended up grabbing coffee together. We talked about everything that Heartache was doing well and adjusting to life as a new mom. A year ago, I couldn't have imagined feeling this way. The pain and betrayal were overwhelming, but now, I'm starting, and I still have my moments of doubt and sadness, but I'm stronger than I was before. I've learned to value myself,